World leaders react to U.S. strikes on Iran. Israel praises, UN calls for de-escalation, diplomacy. Global reactions to the U.S. airstrikes on 3 Iranian nuclear sites varied, with Israel praising Trump's decision, the UN urging de-escalation, and Iran, along with several other countries, condemning the attacks. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu praised President Donald Trump, saying that history will record that President Trump acted to deny the world's most dangerous regime the world's most dangerous weapons. Congratulations, President Trump. Your bold decision to target Iran's nuclear facilities with the awesome and righteous might of the United States will change history, he said. Iran Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi called the attack outrageous, saying that this will have everlasting consequences. The United States, a permanent member of the United Nations Security Council, has committed a grave violation of the UN Charter, international law, and the NPT by attacking Iran's peaceful nuclear installations. The events this morning are outrageous and will have everlasting consequences, he wrote on X. Araghchi said that every member of the UN must be alarmed over this extremely dangerous, lawless, and criminal behavior. In accordance with the UN Charter and its provisions allowing a legitimate response in self-defense, Iran reserves all options to defend its sovereignty, interests, and people, he added. UN Secretary-General and Superscript 3 Antonio Guterres expressed deep concern over the U.S. airstrikes on Iran, describing them as a dangerous escalation that poses a direct threat to international peace and security. I am gravely alarmed by the use of force by the United States against Iran today. This is a dangerous escalation in a region already on the edge and a direct threat to international peace and security. There is a growing risk that this conflict could rapidly get out of control, with catastrophic consequences for civilians, the region, and the world. I call on member states to de-escalate and to uphold their obligations under the UN Charter and other rules of international law. At this perilous hour, it is critical to avoid a spiral of chaos. There is no military solution. The only path forward is diplomacy. The only hope is peace, he said. New Zealand's Foreign Minister Winston Peters emphasised the need to avoid further escalation and supports diplomatic efforts to resolve the situation. He urges all parties to return to talks, stating that diplomacy offers a more lasting solution than continued military action. We acknowledge developments in the last 24 hours, including President Trump's announcement of U.S. strikes on nuclear facilities in Iran. Ongoing military action in the Middle East is extremely worrying, and further escalation must be avoided. New Zealand strongly supports efforts towards diplomacy. We urge all parties to return to talks. Diplomacy will deliver a more enduring resolution than further military action, he said. Australian government spokesperson noted that Iran's nuclear and ballistic missile programs pose a threat to international peace and security. We have been clear that Iran's nuclear and ballistic missile program has been a threat to international peace and security. We note the US President's statement that now is the time for peace. The security situation in the region is highly volatile. We continue to call for de-escalation, dialogue, and diplomacy. Mexico's foreign ministry issued an urgent call for diplomatic dialogue to achieve peace in the Middle East conflict. The ministry urgently calls for diplomatic dialogue for peace between the parties involved in the Middle East conflict. In keeping with our constitutional principles of foreign policy and our country's pacifist convictions, we reiterate our call to de-escalate tensions in the region. The restoration of peaceful coexistence among the states of the region is the highest priority. Cuban President Miguel Díaz-Canel has strongly condemned the U.S. airstrikes on Iran's nuclear facilities, asserting that the aggression violates the UN Charter and international law, posing a grave threat to global stability with potentially irreversible consequences. We strongly condemn the U.S. bombing of Iran's nuclear facilities, which constitutes a dangerous escalation of the conflict in the Middle East. The aggression seriously violates the UN Charter and international law and plunges humanity into a crisis with irreversible consequences. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer expressed deep concern over Iran's nuclear program, emphasizing that it poses a significant threat to international security. Iran's nuclear program is a grave threat to international security. Iran can never be allowed to develop a nuclear weapon, and the US has taken action to alleviate that threat. The situation in the Middle East remains volatile, and stability in the region is a priority. We call on Iran to return to the negotiating table and reach a diplomatic solution to end this crisis, he said. Vice President of the European Commission, Kaja Kallas, said that Iran must not be allowed to develop nuclear weapons, as it poses a significant threat to international security. Iran must not be allowed to develop a nuclear weapon, as it would be a threat to international security. I urge all sides to step back, return to the negotiating table and prevent further escalation. EU foreign ministers will discuss the situation tomorrow, she said. Pakistan's Foreign Minister Ishaq Dar, in an official statement, condemned the US strikes on Iran's nuclear facilities on Sunday, saying they violated all international norms and affirmed Iran's right of self-defense. Pakistan condemns the US attacks on Iranian nuclear facilities, which follow the series of attacks by Israel. We are gravely concerned at the possible further escalation of tensions in the region, he said. The statement further added that the unprecedented escalation of tensions in West Asia was deeply disturbing and any further escalation will have seriously damaging implications for the region and beyond. UK former PM Rishi Sunak said that Iran acquiring nuclear weapons is unacceptable. He commends Israel and the US for taking decisive action to counter this threat, deserving support and gratitude for their efforts. The Iranian regime has long been a threat to regional and global security. The prospect of Iran having a nuclear weapon is unacceptable. Israel and the US have acted decisively to address this threat and deserve our support and thanks for their efforts, Sunak wrote on X. Swipe left for next video. President of the European Commission Ursula von der Leyen emphasized that Iran must not be allowed to develop nuclear weapons, stressing that stability is crucial amidst rising Middle East tensions. Iran must never acquire the bomb. With tensions in the Middle East at a new peak, stability must be the priority. And respect for international law is critical. Now is the moment for Iran to engage in a credible diplomatic solution. The negotiating table is the only place to end this crisis, she wrote on X. Latest blogs.